A dark, empty laboratory room, the sharp, grating scrape of metal sliding on metal, a blinding blue flash, and then dead silence, followed immediately by a metallic taste flooding the mouth. A taste you cannot wash away, cannot spit out, and will never confuse with anything else on earth. It is the taste of your own cells dying, the taste of your DNA unzipping and collapsing. Today, we are going to dive into the most terrifying chapter of human arrogance. We will explore how the smartest people on the planet played Russian roulette with the apocalypse. We'll break down exactly what happens to a human body when the fundamental blueprint of life is erased by invisible bullets. We'll deconstruct a massive historical lie that has been sold to us for decades about a so-called hero of science. And finally, we will figure out why, no matter how godlike our technology becomes, our brains are still fundamentally stuck in the Stone Age. Meet the enemy. They called it the Rufus Core. Later, history would rename it the Demon Core. It was a 6.2 kilogram sphere of weapon-grade plutonium, forged in the secret desert laboratories of Los Alamos in 1945. A heavy, warm metal heart, capable of turning a vibrant metropolis into radioactive ash. Now ask yourself a logical question. How do you think the creators of the atomic bomb, the absolute elite of global physics, handled the most dangerous, volatile object on the planet? Complex hydraulic mechanisms, remote-controlled robotic arms, heavily shielded vacuum vaults? No, they poked it, they propped it open with a standard, cheap, flathead screwdriver from a local hardware store. We are conditioned to think of the Manhattan Project scientists as infallible demigods in white lab coats, flawless intellects. But how did the pinnacle of human intelligence make a mistake so profoundly stupid it borders on suicidal? Spoiler alert, intellect does not cure arrogance. In fact, it usually feeds it. And for this supreme overconfidence, these men would pay the ultimate price, not in prestige, in flesh. It is the late summer of 1945. The world is in ruins, but the scientists at Los Alamos are euphoric. Japan has surrendered. The war is over. These men have achieved the impossible. They have reached into the fabric of the universe, grabbed the god of war by the throat, and tamed him. They are the undisputed victors of the 20th century. This level of success does something dangerous to the human ego. It blinds you. It makes you feel untouchable. They believed that because they had calculated the atom, they completely controlled it. But what exactly were they trying to control? What is a critical mass? Let's step back. Imagine a house party entirely populated by hardcore nervous introverts. These introverts are the neutrons inside a sphere of plutonium. As long as they have plenty of personal space, they stay quiet. The party is dead. But if you start pushing the walls of the room inward, forcing them closer and closer together, panic sets in. They start bumping into each other. One bumps into two, two bump into four, four bump into eight. A stampede begins. In nuclear physics, this stampede is a chain reaction. If you compress the plutonium, or reflect its escaping neutrons back into the core, the reaction multiplies exponentially. If it goes too far, you don't get a stampede. You get a nuclear explosion. The scientists at Los Alamos were obsessed. The scientists at Los Alamos were obsessed. They needed to know the precise moment the core would go critical without letting it go supercritical. To do this, they manually stacked heavy blocks of neutron-reflecting material, like tungsten carbide, around the plutonium sphere. They were building a mirror maze for neutrons. The goal was to walk right up to the absolute precipice of a nuclear detonation, peer over the edge into the abyss, and carefully step back. The legendary physicist Richard Feynman watched this and famously called it underscore, quote, underscore one, underscore. But here is the false truth they all bought into. You might be screaming at your screen right now. Where were the safety protocols? Where were the fail-safes? Safety protocols were for cowards. These were the cowboys of the new atomic frontier. They worked in blue jeans, polo shirts, and cowboy boots. The prevailing belief, the toxic illusion they shared, was that a genius mind is the only safety protocol you need. They honestly believed their IQs were high enough to know exactly when to pull back their hands. Furthermore, radiation is an insidious enemy. It is completely invisible. It doesn't roar like a lion. It doesn't burn your skin immediately like a fire. It has no smell, no sound, no texture. Therefore, our primate brains do not instinctively fear it. We are wired to run from predators with sharp teeth, not from silent subatomic particles. But physics doesn't give a damn about your IQ. Physics doesn't care if you just won World War II. It operates on cold, mathematical indifference, and eventually, inevitably, the dragon woke up. The first blood was drawn by a man named Harry Daghlian. He was a brilliant, promising young physicist, only 24 years old. It is August 21st, 1945. Daghlian is working late at night in the Omega Site laboratory. He is completely alone, save for a security guard sitting at a desk nearby. This is mistake number one: fatigue. He has been working brutal hours. His focus is fraying. He is building a reflector out of heavy tungsten carbide bricks, stacking them around the plutonium sphere like deadly Lego blocks. As he brings the final brick over the sphere, the neutron counters begin to scream. The core is on the absolute brink. Daghlian realizes he needs to pull the brick away, but his tired hand trembles. Just a fraction of a millimeter. The heavy tungsten brick slips from his fingers and drops directly onto the center of the plutonium sphere. In a millionth of a second, the core goes supercritical. A blinding flash of blue light erupts in the dark room. Daghlian panics. He reaches into the blazing radiation field and tries to knock the heavy brick off, but it's too heavy. He is forced to literally disassemble the pile of bricks around the core, bathing his hands and chest in a torrential downpour of gamma rays and neutrons. He stops the reaction, but it's already too late. The invisible bullets have hit their mark. What followed were 24 days of unimaginable, agonizing death. We need to talk about what acute radiation syndrome actually is, because movies get it wrong. Radiation doesn't kill you like a poison. It kills you like a corrupted hard drive. When high-energy neutrons blast through human tissue, they act like microscopic wrecking balls. They smash through the double helix of your DNA, the fundamental blueprint that tells your cells how to repair themselves, how to divide, how to exist, is entirely deleted. For the first few days, Daghlian seemed okay. This is the cruelest phase of radiation sickness, the walking ghost phase. But then the cellular collapse began. Because his cells had forgotten how to divide, his body could no longer maintain itself. His hands, which took the brunt of the blast, blistered incredibly, swelling into unrecognizable lumps of raw meat. His skin began to slough off like a loose sock. His internal organs melted into a toxic soup. He dissolved from the inside out, completely conscious, his mother sitting by his hospital bed, watching her brilliant son liquefy. He died on September 15th, 1945. Now, here is the new loop. You would assume that after watching a 24-year-old prodigy melt in a hospital bed, the military and the scientists would immediately lock the core away, encase it in lead and concrete, ban manual experiments permanently. If you think that, you fundamentally misunderstand human nature. Enter Louis Slotin. It is May 21st, 1946. Slotin is the resident daredevil of Los Alamos. A Canadian physicist with a flair for the dramatic, he wore cowboy boots, aviator sunglasses, and had an ego the size of the New Mexico desert. Slotin was the chief armorer of the U.S. nuclear program. He had performed Daghlian's exact experiment dozens of times. He was the master of tickling the dragon. But Slotin got bored with bricks. Bricks were slow, so he turned the deadliest experiment on Earth into a cheap parlor trick. Instead of carefully stacking blocks, he placed the plutonium core inside a beryllium hemisphere. To bring the core to the edge of criticality, he would lower a top beryllium hemisphere over it. But if the top sphere completely covered the core, it would instantly go supercritical and kill everyone. So, how did this absolute genius prevent the sphere from closing? He propped the edge open with a flathead screwdriver. He would twist the blade of the screwdriver to raise or lower the dome, adjusting the nuclear reaction by literal millimeters, just by the feeling in his wrist. It's a warm May afternoon. There are 8 people in the room. Slotin is conducting a demonstration for his colleagues, including Alvin Graves, who was standing right over his shoulder. Slotin is confident. He is chatting. He is showing off. The screwdriver slips. It wasn't a massive movement, just a tiny slip of steel against beryllium. But it was enough. Click. The top hemisphere drops shut. The plutonium is perfectly sealed. Instantly, a wave of heat slams into the faces of the men in the room. A terrifying, unnatural blue flash. Cherenkov radiation, caused by high-energy particles, traveling faster than the speed of light in the fluid of their eyeballs, floods the laboratory. Slotin reacts purely on adrenaline. He violently thrusts his left hand forward, flips the beryllium hemisphere off the core, and throws it to the floor. The reaction stops. Slotin turns around, his face pale. He knows exactly what just happened. He looks at his colleagues, the air in the room tasting of ozone and metallic decay, and says, "Well, that does it." The death sentence had been signed. If you read the official press releases from the summer of 1946, you will find a very specific narrative. The United States government and the media painted Louis Slotin as an absolute American hero. The headlines blared, "Brave scientist sacrifices himself." They claimed that by swiftly knocking the sphere away with his bare hands, Slotin heroically shielded his 7 colleagues from the blast, sacrificing his own life to save theirs. It is a beautiful, comforting story, a story of martyrdom and noble sacrifice, but it is a lie. Slotin was not the savior of that room. He was the sole architect of its catastrophe. Months before this fatal afternoon, Enrico Fermi, one of the legendary fathers of the atomic age, and a man who understood physics on an almost divine level, watched Slotin perform his screwdriver trick. Fermi was horrified. He looked at Slotin and told him flatly, without emotion, "You will be dead within a year if you keep doing that." Therefore, Slotin knew he was warned by the greatest mind of his generation, but he despised the rules. He found safety protocols beneath him. His staggering, blinding ego put the lives of every single person in that room on the chopping block. He wasn't conducting science. He was playing Russian roulette with a nuclear bullet to show off to his friends. And the chamber was loaded. Slotin didn't even get the 24 days that Daglian got. The dose he received was far more massive. He got 9 days. His cellular collapse was violent and rapid. Because his body could no longer reproduce white blood cells, his immune system vanished. His gastrointestinal tract completely disintegrated, making it impossible to absorb nutrients. His brain swelled violently against his skull, sending him into delirium. His heroic framing in the newspapers did absolutely nothing to alter his horrifying physiology. He died in total agony on May 30th, 1946. But what became of the cursed sphere? The demon core itself? You might imagine they destroyed it out of revenge, or buried it in a deep underground vault as a grim monument to the scientists who died. No, to the military machine, the core wasn't a cursed object. It wasn't a demon. It was a multi-million-dollar asset. It was a tool. Just a few weeks later, the demon core was melted down, recast, and integrated into a new atomic weapon. On July 1st, 1946, during Operation Crossroads, that weapon was dropped over the naval fleet anchored at Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. The demon fulfilled its original designed purpose. It exploded, vaporizing ships and poisoning the ocean, disappearing into a massive mushroom cloud. It took 2 horrifying, agonizing, and entirely preventable deaths for the administration at Los Alamos to wake up. Finally, they permanently banned the manual assembly of critical masses. The era of, quote, 5 by hand was over. They built remote-controlled machines. Devices like the quote 6 reactor allowed scientists to manipulate plutonium from a quarter mile away, hidden behind thick concrete walls, watching through television monitors, because machines don't sweat. Machines don't get tired at 2 in the morning. And most importantly, machines don't have egos. They don't try to show off their bravery in front of their coworkers. There is a profound, cynical truth hidden in the story of the Demon Core. It is a mirror held up to the human species. We are a species of staggering intellect. We can split the atom. We can calculate the trajectory of the stars. We can bend the laws of physics to our will. But we are tragically, fatally lacking in wisdom. This is not a story about the dangers of ionizing radiation. This is a story about the lethal gap between the godlike power of our technology and the primitive primate wiring of our psychology. We are smart enough to build the apocalypse, but still arrogant enough to prop it open with a screwdriver. Look around us today. The stakes are infinitely higher. We are building the Large Hadron Collider, smashing particles at the speed of light. We are editing the human genome with CRISPR, rewriting the code of life itself. We are pouring billions into artificial general intelligence, creating digital minds that will soon surpass our own. We are holding the literal fabric of reality in our hands. But deep down, beneath the PhDs, the sterile laboratories, and the TED Talks, we are still those same overconfident apes. We still believe that because we built a technology, we can perfectly control it. We still believe that our genius is an absolute shield against disaster. And you can guarantee that somewhere, right now, in a high-tech lab or a Silicon Valley startup, someone incredibly smart, incredibly arrogant, and totally blind to their own flaws is once again balancing the fate of humanity on the tip of a flathead screwdriver.